Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to another episode of Engineering with Shamil. And today we are going to discuss about the testing and maintenance of the emergency and exit lights. For the last few videos, we have been discussing about the emergency light. We have discussed about the operation of the emergency light. We have discussed about the wiring and power requirements of the emergency light. We have discussed about the design and spacing criteria for the emergency and exit lights. And we have actually discussed about the operation of the exit lights, where how the emergency lights will be operating in the normal condition during the power failure and also during the power restoration time. Okay, so this is what we had discussed. We had discussed about all the aspects in these videos. Today we are going to discuss about the testing and maintenance of the emergency and exit lights. Like, how do we need to test and maintain the emergency and exit lights? So what all needs to be checked, how the maintenance should be taken place, whether it should go for monthly or whether it should go for annually. All those details we'll be covering in this video. Okay, so again, to refresh our memory, so emergency light is actually a component. An equipment which actually works during the time of power failure. So again, emergency light is of two types. So we have maintained light and we have the non-maintained light. Normally when we install emergency light, the emergency light will be turned off will be actually in the off state during the normal operation, and it will be on during the power failure condition. So this category of light is the non-maintained emergency light. But when it comes to the maintained emergency light, it will be actually turned on during the normal state and also during the power failure state. Only thing is that the power supply will be switched during the power failure state. That is, from the mains power to the battery state, it will be actually changed. So this is the difference between the maintained emergency light and the non-maintained emergency light. So let us see what all are the tasks involved in the testing and maintenance of the emergency and exit light. So, what is testing and maintenance? So, testing and maintenance is to perform regular checks. Okay, so we need to perform regular checks, which is to ensure that the emergency light is always working during a real power failure. So, it is like we are preparing the emergency and exit lights for a real power failure. So, we need to ensure that all these lights are working. Okay, so if there is a power failure, if there is an actual power failure, we can these lights will be working during that time. Okay, so the purpose of this testing and maintenance is that it is to verify whether the batteries, lamps, and circuits are functional during the time of power failure. Okay, so that is the purpose behind testing and maintenance of the emergency and exit lights. Now, there are two main tests which are involved in the testing and maintenance of the emergency and exit lights. So the first test is to have a functional test. So the functional test is basically to check the operation of the emergency and exit light. And this testing will be taking place monthly. Okay, every month we need to test whether the emergency and exit lights will be are working or not. The duration of the test is 30 seconds. Okay, we just need to simulate a power failure and see whether all the lights are working or not. Okay, so the idea of this test is that the purpose of this test is to see whether the lamp and the battery are working properly or not. Okay, in case if there is any damage, then we have to replace that light or we have to repair that light. Okay, now when it comes to the full duration test, that is second test, it is conducted annually. Now what happens during this test? In this test, what happens is we are simulating a power failure and we are keeping the lights on for the entire duration of the battery. Okay, so for entire duration, as in 1 to 3 hours. For 1 to 3 hours, we are seeing whether the lights will withstand during that entire capacity, during that entire time period. Okay, whether the lights will operate for the entire time period, and it is to verify the full battery capacity. That is the intention behind this test. So we have covered two tests. So the first test is the functional test, which occurs monthly, and then we have the full duration test or full load test, which occurs annually. Okay, so the functional test is for 30 seconds. It's for a brief period, and the full duration test is for 1 to 3 hours, depending on the battery capacity of the emergency and exit lights. Okay, so this is about the tests involved in the emergency and exit lights. Now, what all are the test methods? So there are three test methods which are involved. So we have a test key switch. Okay. Now what happens with test key switch is that it is a manual switch which will simulate the power failure. So when you're actually when you're switching off the switch, what happens is the power failure will be simulated and then the lights will be operating. Okay. That is test key switch. Then the second one is the manual mains switch. So you are actually switching off the mains breaker to see whether the battery is working or not. Okay, to see whether the light is working or not. So when you are switching off the main supply, what happens is all the lights will be working on the battery source. And the third kind of test is automatic self-test. This will be actually normally seen in the centralized battery systems. So these systems, what happens is they will run the tests, they will be running the tests, and then they will be reporting in case if any faults are there or not. So this will be happening in a automated schedule. Okay, so that we don't have to bother over that. The reports will be coming from the system itself. Okay, so these are the three test methods that are involved. So first test is the test key switch. The second one is to isolate the mains breaker, and the third one is the automatic self test, which is normally seen in the centralized battery system. So these are three test methods: test key switch, manual mains isolation, and the automatic self test. Now, what all do we need to check during the maintenance time? Okay, so we have to check the following things as you see in the slide. So the first thing is the lamps and the LEDs. By lamps and LEDs, I mean the light fittings. Okay, so we need to see whether the light fittings are working properly, whether LEDs are working properly, and whether if there is any flickering in the LEDs or the lamps of the emergency lights. Okay, so that item we have to check when it comes to lamps and LEDs. The second aspect is for the batteries. So we need to see whether there is any corrosion of the batteries, whether there is any swelling of the batteries, or whether there is any battery leakage or not. Okay, so that is about the batteries. The third one is to see is regarding the exit signs. So we need to ensure that the exit signs are clearly visible. Okay, are clearly visible. The fourth one is fixing and mounting, whether the devices, whether the equipments have been fixed properly, whether they are secured, and whether they are undamaged. Okay, that is about the fixing and mounting aspect. The fifth aspect is regarding the indicator LEDs. Okay, now emergency lights and exit lights will be having indicator LEDs. So we need to see whether they are showing the proper status or not. If it is a CBS, if it is centralized battery system, there will be indicator lights for respective situation. Like for example, for the normal condition, there will be a green light. For the fault condition, there will be yellow or red light, depending on the system. So we need to ensure that whether these LEDs are providing the correct status or not. Then finally, we have the logbook. So what do we do in the logbook? In logbook, we actually record all these tests. Okay, whatever test you are conducting, we have to mention that in the logbook, and we need to report our findings and observations in the logbook. Okay, so these are the factors that we need to see during the time of maintenance. So in maintenance, there are 6 aspects that we need to check. So first one, we need to see whether the lamps or the LEDs are working properly. We need to check whether there is any leakage, corrosion, or swelling of the batteries in the emergency and exit lights. Then the third one is that we need to see whether the exit signs are clearly visible. The fourth one is regarding the fixing and the mounting of the exit signs. Okay, whether they are secured or whether they are undamaged. The fifth one is regarding the indicator LEDs. It is to show the correct status of the indicator LEDs. Okay, be it the individual equipment or whether be it the centralized centralized panel. And the last one is regarding the logbook. Whatever tests you are doing, you have to mention in the logbook, and we have to mention our observations and the findings in the logbook as well. So these are the aspects that we need to check during the maintenance period. Now, why is testing very important? Okay, there are 4 reasons. So the first one is to ensure the reliability. Now, the reliability is that what happens when you are testing the reliability? Or let me repeat this once again. Why testing of emergency and exit light is very important? The reason is that there are 4 reasons for this one. So the first one is reliability. So reliability is that basically to ensure that the lights are working when needed. That is during the time of an actual failure. We need to ensure that these lights are ready for that situation, that these lights are working during that time of the power failure. Okay, so that is why we need to ensure the reliability. The second one is code compliance. We are ensuring that the emergency lights are installed and they are spaced, they are designed as per the core regulations. Okay, be it NFPA 101, be it IEC standard 60598, or be it the local regulations like the Qatar Civil Defense or whichever region you are in. The third aspect is the safety. So the emergency lights are installed for the safety of the occupants of that particular area. We need to ensure that these occupants are escaping the building and this can be done by properly illuminating the egress routes and also identifying the correct exit doors. So that is the safety aspect. So we are ensuring that safety is being we are ensuring that safety is not compromised through this testing. And the last one is battery health. We need to ensure that the batteries which are installed are fresh batteries, they are properly working, and we should ensure that there is no batteries which are corrupted or damaged or aged. Okay, which means aged in the sense like due to long usage, these batteries, the battery health is not affected. So these are the four reasons. So we have the reliability aspect, we have the code compliance aspect, then we have the safety aspect, and then we have the battery health aspect. Reliability is basically to see whether the lights will work when needed during the time of the actual power failure. Code compliance is to ensure that these lights are mandatory under NFPA 101. Safety is when it prevents failure in real emergencies, and the battery health is when to identify aging batteries early. So this is why testing is important. Okay, so reliability, code compliance, safety, and battery health. Now, how now to see what all activities are there. Now let us see what all activities are there in the maintenance schedule for the emergency and exit lights. Okay, so whenever you're planning for the maintenance activity for the emergency exit lights, you need to plan for these tasks. So the first task is visual inspection of lamps and indicators. So we need to ensure that these lamps and indicators are visually inspected every month. Okay. The second aspect is regarding the functional test. Okay. So we need to ensure that the lamps, the emergency lamps or the emergency lights are tested monthly. Okay. For 30 seconds. Okay. That's a quick check. Then full duration test, we have to do it annually. That is for 1 to 3 hours. That is for the entire battery duration, battery capacity. For the entire duration between 1 to 3 hours, we need to see whether the battery will withstand, whether the battery will operate, whether the battery capacity is sufficient to operate these lights. And the battery replacement, that is in case if there is any damage in the batteries or if the batteries are aged. So for every 3 to 5 years, we need to replace the batteries. Okay, so that is also needs to be done. And the last one is regarding the logbook update. So after every test, we need to mention our findings in the logbook. Okay, so the logbook can be kept, can be either given to the client or otherwise it can be kept near to the panel if you are using a CBS system. Okay, so this is about the maintenance schedule. Okay, it's a typical maintenance schedule. Now, this task can actually vary depending on the client requirement. Sometimes the client requirement might be something else. Maybe some additional tasks also will be there. Again, that depends from project to project. But like if you're planning for a maintenance schedule, these are the activities that you need to consider beforehand. Okay. So to summarize this video about the testing and maintenance, so we need to test monthly, we need to test fully annually, and we need to maintain regularly. Okay, so monthly test is actually for quick check to see whether all the lights are working or not. Annually is actually to see the battery capacity, whether the battery capacity is sufficient to operate all the lights, and the maintenance is to replace all the aging parts. Okay, so these are the tests which are involved. These are tests and the maintenance activities which are involved for the emergency and exit lights. So what happens when we actually do the testing and maintenance is that the emergency lights and the exit lights, they will respond the way we needed, the way we intend during the time of actual power failure. Okay, they will actually work as required during the time of actual power failure. Okay, and they will never fail. So in order to ensure that this emergency light and exit light do not fail, we have to do the testing and maintenance on a regular manner without fail. Okay, so this is about the testing and maintenance of the emergency exit light. Thank you for listening. And if you have any queries, doubts, feedback, comments regarding this video, kindly post them in the chat box and the comment section, and I will be happily obliged to respond to each and every query of yours. Thank you again for listening. And before I sign off, I would request all of you to kindly like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Engineering with Shamil, so it will serve as a motivation for me to create more engineering related videos. Thank you once again. This is my third time I'm saying thank you. Thank you once again. And I will be signing off. Thank you, and wishing all of you a happy day ahead.